You guys know Miss Lawrence? Miss Lawrence, maybe? Any OPA students here? Yeah. I was in OPA. Okay. Anybody in Mu Alpha Theta? The Math Honor Society? I did that. Anyone? I see a couple hands. Okay. All right. Well, it is 10 o'clock, so I think, Norman, are we good to get started here? All right. Well, I want to thank you all so much for being here today and for your attention. I hope I hold on to that throughout this presentation. So Ms. Mimi mentioned, my name is Kaylee Cunningham. I graduated from this school in 2018. I went on to get my bachelor's degree in nuclear science and engineering from the University of Florida. So go Gators. Do you have any Gators fans? Yeah? And I am currently getting a master's in nuclear science and engineering at MIT. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So I mentioned a little bit about who I am. Why am I here? I'm here to talk to you all today about the things that I did while I was here at this school that set me up for success, that got me into UF, that got me into MIT, and sent me on this crazy journey in the nuclear energy industry. But before we really dive into it, why should you care, right? Like, that's what everyone wants to know. Why does any of this matter? Now, first off, I get to do some really cool research. So here we're looking at some fancy looking robot type stuff, okay? So this is actually at MIT. This is what we call a focused ion beam. You guys know what ions are? Yes? Yeah? So basically how this machine works is we take ions and use ions to basically cut out super tiny things, almost like laser engraving something, except we do it with ions. So we can take samples and make them small enough so we can see the individual atoms in the, like we can actually see atoms. We use this technology called transmission electron microscopes or microscopy, which is a big fancy microscope that we shoot electrons through. And that fancy microscope lets us look at atoms and understand how these things work, how different nuclear materials perform. Here, and I promise I'm not going to talk about science the whole time, okay? I know you guys get a lot of that as is. But hear me out. A lot of the stuff that I do here, if you see this, if this wants to work, maybe. Okay, well, if you can see the images here on the right side, we have kind of differences in shading. This sample is smaller and thinner than a human hair. And that different colored shading that we're looking at is different crystal structures. So any of you all taking chemistry, we've heard about crystal structures? Yeah, okay. So you know the project where you take the big styrofoam balls and you stick the wood corks into them and then you like make the giant molecules? Those molecules get put together to create these things called crystal structures, right? And these crystal structures line up to create a material. And those crystals are oriented in different directions when they come together. And that's what you're looking at in these pictures on the side. Smaller than a human hair, and we can look at it like that. That's pretty cool. But one of the other things that I do, how many of you are taking computer science? Yeah? Okay, I see some hands, some murmurs. Computer science, okay. I took AP Computer Science A in this school with Miss Mimi. I took AP Computer Science Principles in this school with Miss Mimi. And computer science set me up for success, okay? And most of the work that I do now, outside of those fancy microscopes, is using computer science to make fancy plots like that one, to look at how temperature changes and different material properties change in nuclear fuel. Like, I use computer science to figure out how nuclear fuel works. It's kind of insane. But why should you care about any of those things in the research that I'm doing? Well, I'm sure many of you have heard about the concerning environmental changes we've seen around us. Climate change is happening. It's a real thing. The planet is getting warmer. We see temperatures getting colder in Florida. And there's a lot going on that leads to a lot of, or has been caused by, a lot of pollution in the environment. So when we have different energy sources that most of you in the Engineering Academy will learn about, you look at things like natural gas, coal. These are fossil fuels that pollute a lot of bad stuff into the environment. So these fuel types are okay, but they're not fantastic because of the stuff that they pollute into the environment. So we are actively working with the Department of Energy and the government. We are working to research different technologies we can use, like anybody heard of wind power or solar power? Maybe? So we are actively using those technologies to develop new ways to produce electricity. Because let's be real, like your iPhone that's sitting in your lap that I see so many of you looking down and staring at, yes, I'm calling you all out. Those iPhones need to be charged somehow. They don't magically turn on when you plug it into the wall. That electricity has to come from somewhere. Okay, and when that electricity has to come from somewhere, we need to make sure it's coming from a reliable energy resource. So the work that I do works on nuclear energy technologies to make them less expensive and more reliable and safer. How many of you have heard of nuclear energy? Show of hands. Okay, a good amount of hands. That's awesome. So a lot of the things that I talk about on my TikTok page, which we'll get to later, has to do with communicating about nuclear energy. Now, another cool part of my job is I, as a graduate student, I don't even have like a real job yet, I'm still in school, but one of the cool things I get to do is travel. Who's interested in traveling for free? Internationally, all over the world. Okay. So, if you actually like pay attention and work hard and do the thing in school and listen to what your teachers say, you could end up like me, traveling quite literally all over the world for free to go talk about nuclear energy. That's what I've been doing. You can see a picture here. I was in Iceland 3 years ago. I was in Austria. Those are my parents who are also in the audience here. With me in Vienna, Austria, 2 years ago. I got to go to MIT, obviously. I go to school there. I got to go to the United Kingdom and stay in that castle in the bottom left corner. Like I stayed in a castle and gave a presentation in a castle. I got to go to Japan, you name it. It has been such a whirlwind, and that is one of the pros of going into this field. Now, how the heck did I get here? That's what we're really here to talk about today, is how I ended up in this spot where I get to travel all over the world for free, do crazy cool research for MIT, and ultimately work towards saving the planet. Like, I don't know about you, but that's my dream job. So, let's talk about what I did at Olympic Heights. Now, I did play basketball. I was on the women's varsity team in 2016. So if you guys maybe you're too young, but heard the rumor about the basketball team from Boca that ended up on ESPN for losing by over 100 points to West Boca, that was my team. Thank you. So, as you can imagine, I did not end up with a career in basketball. That did not work out for me. But I did a lot of other goofy things, including being in the Fashion Academy. If you see the cringy 2014 kind of on fleek, I know you're all like, ew, what is that? But that was my freshman year of high school. So I did a lot of awesome stuff here at this school that set me up for success. Now, I started off as a theater kid. Maybe you would have guessed that, maybe not. It's okay, you can cringe, you can laugh. Hey, yeah, we loved theater. I was super involved. I actually performed on this stage a few times. I did tech in that tech booth upstairs. And I was so in love with what I was doing. I moved to Boca from North Carolina. I was originally from Boston, but I moved to Boca about a month or two into the school year through my freshman year. This was in 2014. And when I moved, I thought I just had to keep doing theater. It's what I did in 8th grade. I figured I would do it in 9th grade, 10th grade for the rest of my life. It was what I loved doing, was being on a stage in front of people like you doing cool, goofy things. But I was also, my sophomore year at OH, okay, 2015, I was taking the 5th period theater class, and I was also taking Mr. McKay's AP Physics 1 class, and I don't know if Mr. Niger is still here, but I took his, So I took Mr. Niger's AP Calc B class, and crazy, right? I know. I'm not that old, guys, come on. So I was taking these classes, and I had a few friends in these classes that were also in Miss Mimi's computer science class. And they were so excited about the work they were doing, and they would always come in and tell me about it. And I was like, well, I want to know what you're doing. I want to do it too. So one day, this girl, Maddie, who is now one of my very best friends, pulled me aside and said, why don't you just come? The class is during your lunch period anyway, so just come with me. So I skipped my lunch and went and ate in Miss Mimi's classroom, not by the computers, because I know Miss Mimi hasn't been here in a while, but that was a very strict rule. You can't eat by the computer. But I would eat my lunch and then hop on a computer and try and do this coding thing that everyone was talking about. And I actually really liked it a lot. And that was tough for me to admit because I was still doing all the theater stuff and I wanted to be performing and creative. And I guess I never really pictured a career in STEM. But I fell in love with what I was doing, and eventually I just didn't want to be wasting my lunch period and just working all day. So I decided the best thing for me to do would be switch out of that theater class and go into Miss Mimi's computer science class. Then I could go to class with my friends, and I could go to lunch with all my friends that were in those calc and physics classes, and then we could go to the computer science class together. My friends may or may not have been a little more motivating for that decision, but that's okay. It was a great decision. And so I ended up joining the engineering academy. So I had one of those purple shirts. I should have worn it today. I would have blended in with all of you, right? And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And that was when I left theater. And I decided that I had one goal. My family was originally from Boston. Okay, and all I wanted was to go to MIT. I had heard about it growing up. That's where the smartest people in the world go to school, and that was all I talked about. Very cringy 2014 selfie of me in the MIT shirt, and then this is me with an MIT mathematics professor at FAU Math Day. Anybody been to FAU Math Day? Maybe not. Okay, I saw one hand. Thank you. So I became obsessed, and I decided from here on out, everything I was going to do, everything in my power, I would do so that I could go to this school. I was obsessed. Is anybody else obsessed with a dream school like that? You can be honest. Everybody has that one school they just feel like they have to go to. Yeah, exactly. So one of the very important activities I did while I was at this school so I could get into MIT was the astronaut challenge. So some of you may or may not have heard about the astronaut challenge, but the astronaut challenge was a competition that girl Maddie invited me to do, one of my best friends, and we formed a team and went to Kennedy Space Center. Has anyone been to Kennedy Space Center? Awesome, great. So Kennedy Space Center is a really cool place where every year in the state of Florida, and only in the state of Florida, they host this competition where you get to go and fly a space shuttle simulator. Okay, even if you're not into the nerdy stuff, space is pretty cool, right? We can all agree, like, space is pretty awesome. So flying the space shuttle simulator and then doing this lab research challenge where we had to come up with an experiment to help solve a problem that NASA wanted to solve. So that was something that we got to do. Then there was an engineering challenge, solving problems and defending our work. And then there was a landing simulator challenge. But now, if any of you have zoned out or you're looking at your phones, I invite you to look up just for a second, please, okay? And I want to talk about where people from this team, this astronaut team, ended up. So I had one goal, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but all I wanted to do was go to MIT. And where am I at right now? MIT. Now, my friend Liz, the blonde one in the top right corner, okay, all she ever wanted to do was fly planes. You know what she's doing now? She's flying planes. She is a pilot in the Marines and a mechanical engineer for the Marines. Yeah, that's worth an applause. Now, if you see the picture below that is myself, this guy, Alec Gray, also one of my best friends. You know what Alec always wanted to do? Alec always wanted to be an astronaut. Now, he's not an astronaut right now, but he is flying planes for the Air Force and training to join the Space Force so that he can become an astronaut. Okay? Yeah, thank you. Okay, now, Alexa Cole. Alexa, sitting next to Alec in that fancy machine, Alexa always wanted to do computer science. And now, she's doing a PhD in computer science and engineering at UF. Right? Thank you. I'm here for the hype. That's awesome. And of course, Maddie, who's sitting next to me in the blue dress in the top left corner. Maddie always wanted to do computer science and work at Microsoft. It was a lifelong dream. It was all she talked about. And you know where she is now? Living in Seattle and working as a project manager at Microsoft. So you want to talk about achieving your dreams? Like your literal dreams. Pretty much every single person who did this competition did exactly what they said they wanted to do, which is insane and something that's actually very rare that actually happens. Now, one of the other things that I did during my time at OH was science fair. Now, those of you that are in the engineering academy, if you've taken principles of engineering or you're going to take it, there was a requirement when I took it to do science fair. Maybe. Have any of you done science fair? Okay, there's a few hands. Okay, all right. I see you guys. I see you. Awesome. So, I was a senior when I took principles of engineering. Typically, it was the sophomore class, but I did things a little bit backwards. And my senior year, I said to my teacher, Miss Mimi, who introduced me, Miss Mimi, I'm too old. I'm too old to do science fair. I'm a senior in high school. I don't want to do this. And she said, Kaylee, oh no, it's back. And she said, Kaylee, you're taking the class. It's for a grade. You have to do science fair. And I have never been more grateful for that push in my life because science fair was one of the best things to happen to me. So when I did science fair, I was kind of not excited about it. I was irritated. I'm like, I'm a senior. I shouldn't be doing this. But I decided, you know what? If I'm going to do it, I may as well have some fun. And I said, what's something we can do that's like impactful? Like all the science fair projects that are scary good always have something to do with cancer, right? Like that's like what it sounds like. I said, what can we do? Like what, I don't know. And Miss Mimi mentioned that there is radon gas. Radon is a radioactive isotope that seeps out of concrete, and oftentimes in basements, I know there aren't basements here in Florida, but in the Northeast, where I'm originally from, people have basements. And it's an ongoing problem that people get lung cancer because they're exposed to this radon gas. And that's really sad. So what I wanted to do was create a sort of mask. And Miss Mimi helped me come up with this idea. You know, my idea was I would play with some materials and create a mask so that it would filter out the radiation and protect people's lungs. And when I started playing with materials, sure enough, the material I made was airtight and watertight. So, can't breathe through it, not gonna work as a mask. So I said, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. We have to pivot. And what I ended up finding online was a research paper that was published by Harvard Medical School. Anybody heard of it? Yeah. And this paper mentioned that flight attendants were 50% more likely to get breast cancer because they are exposed to cosmic radiation. So there's radiation in space, and that radiation, when airplanes fly, those planes fly in the stratosphere, and they aren't as protected from the radiation as we are here down on Earth. So these flight attendants are constantly exposed, and the females are developing breast cancer. So I said, that's interesting, because I was in the Fashion Academy my freshman year, and I learned how to sew. So sure enough, I played around a little bit, and I said, I could totally put this material into a bra. And it sounded a little unconventional to take to the science fair and say, hey, I made a bra to protect people from boob cancer. Like that's a little weird, right? But I decided to go with it. Like Miss Mimi said, I took the leap and trusted that a net would just appear. And I sewed a prototype, which you can see in this top right corner. And all of this stuff I did totally at home, like from my bedroom floor. You can see these are me sewing and purchasing a Geiger counter and playing with materials and everything that I was doing. I did it all in my bedroom off of a babysitting budget. And I was able to come up with a prototype bra to prevent women from getting breast cancer and protect them from radiation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. And so, I know, I hear some of you, I hear the Shark Tank murmurs, I'll get there, be patient. So, I ended up taking this project to the school science fair, right? And that school science fair here at OH, Mr. Korn, is Mr. Korn still here? Maybe, no? Oh, too bad. I know I'm old, I get it, okay? So, Mr. Korn, who was the head of the science fair program at the time, selected my project to go compete at the district science fair. So I went to the district science fair. You can see my crappy board, if we back up a little bit here, on the right, covered in like glitter glue, like really not the best board. It got progressively better, but the point is, I went to the district science fair, I did my best, and I ended up placing first in the chemistry division. Right? And this is the first time I ever did science fair. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know what was going on, and that's why my board looked like a middle schooler did it, but that's okay. It wasn't about the board. It wasn't about the presentation. It was about the work that I did and the project that I did. So after I won the district science fair in my division, I got invited to go to the Florida State Science Fair. And at the Florida State Science Fair, I ended up placing second in my division. Second in the state, that's pretty good, right? And after I placed second in my division, I continued to kind of beef up my project. You notice the board got progressively taller. As I kind of beefed up my project and made it better and did more calculations and revised my data and made my prototype, which you can see in this left photo, the bra, right? As I progressively went through these steps, because I placed second in the state, and I was one of the top scoring students from Palm Beach County, the county said, we'll pay for you to go to the International Science Fair. we'll give you a shot. So I went to the Intel International, the World Science Fair. Thank you. And at this World Science Fair, I ended up placing 4th in my category. In the world! Like, in the world! Like, that's insane. I did not think at the time that this dinky little glitter glue board would take me all the way to the World Science Fair, and I placed 4th? Like, what? Who does that? Like, it was just so crazy, and it was really a result of all the hard work I put into it. And throughout the course of this, I really just fell in love with this process of research, learning and growing and taking these experiments and understanding how they can be used to solve a problem. Taking a problem that you want to solve, everybody has problems in their life, right? Right? We can raise our hands. We can still participate. Stay with me. Stay with me. So we all have problems in our life, but being able to take these problems and apply the scientific method that we've heard about throughout school to be able to then solve that problem for more people. That is the process that I fell in love with, and that's when I knew I wanted to pursue a career in research. And later on, after I had started at the University of Florida, in 2019, just a few months after I had graduated, the sharks from Shark Tank came here to Olympic Heights. That's the gym. That is the OH Gymnasium and the sharks from Shark Tank and me. And that's because Olympic Heights produces, whether you know it or not, Olympic Heights produces brilliant students. All of you in this room are brilliant, whether you believe me or not. So there was a student, and this student entered an essay competition to have the Sharks come give a talk at your high school. And she won, and the Sharks came to give a talk. And because I had such a wonderful relationship with these fantastic teachers, I was invited to come back so I could meet with them. And Damon, the one standing on the far side, kind of to my right, actually reached out to me and worked with me for a little while on developing this project. And I took it to MIT, I did a little bit of work there, and now I've decided to press pause until I graduate and then go from there. We'll get to questions at the end. You'll have time to ask questions, I promise. We're doing good on time. So these are the kind of things that happen at Olympic Heights. You guys, I feel like I need to scream at you all. This is the stuff that happens at your school. Your school. Like, these are the things that you can be doing because you are here. Now, after all that, placing 4th in the world, getting help at looking at how to start a business from Damon John from Shark Tank, astronaut challenge, great exam scores, great SAT scores, perfect grades, 4.0, unweighted GPA. I ended up not getting accepted into MIT. Yep, I was crushed. And when I tell you crushed, I mean, I was like in a depression spiral for like a week. Like, I was in PJs all day. I kept getting dress coded for wearing PJs. And it was just, I was not okay. I was heartbroken. You dream about going to this one place your whole life just to get decided no based on a report on a piece of paper? Like, seriously? I was heartbroken. But I did get into the University of Florida and a few other schools. Yeah, go Gators. I heard you. Go Gators. Chomp, chomp, right? Amazing school. And I got into a few other schools, and I actually really did not want to go to UF. Like, I was dead set on not going to UF. I wanted to go back to the Northeast because that's where I was originally from. But my mother, sitting in the front row, pulled me aside, pulled me aside and said, Kaylee, let's go back to UF and visit one more time. So I went back to UF to visit, and I actually ended up meeting with the department head in nuclear engineering, and he sat me down. I got all dressed up like I'm dressed up today, and I brought in a resume, and I handed it to him, and he was like, what incoming freshman does this? Like, you're in a suit, like you brought a resume, like who are you? I know it sounds a little crazy, but I was absolutely delusional, okay? You gotta be a little delusional, okay? And I ended up getting offered from that department head a research job, starting my first day on campus as a freshman. That doesn't happen, you guys. So I said, you know what? There's an opportunity here, and I had the Florida Bright Future Scholarship. Hey, right? Didn't have to pay tuition, which you guys will find out later is like a really big deal. Paying for college tuition, it's expensive. So because I had Bright Futures, and I had a bunch of other scholarships that would pay for my housing, I said, you know what? Now I have this research job too. Let's do it. And I became a Florida Gator. Now, I mentioned a lot about computer science. It had a lot to do with my undergraduate and my high school career. And this computer science stuff I really enjoyed, but I couldn't get over like the excitement and the kind of high I got from that science fair project. Like working on the radiation stuff, I didn't fully understand it. Let's be honest, I had no idea what I was doing. Like I really just didn't have a clue. But I was delusional, and I just kept working towards it, and I decided, you know what, I really like this stuff. I'm going to study nuclear engineering. And so I did. And after that first year, it's okay, I appreciate you guys. You don't have to clap every time I change slides, but you know, you can if you want to, but okay, thank you. So, after my first year at UF, I was a freshman, okay? Really, it was after my first semester. I took this class where they made us apply. It was a communications class, technical writing, and they made us apply to an internship. We didn't have to actually apply, but we had to write up the application. And I said, well, if I'm writing up the application, like I may as well. And I figured, what do I have the skill sets to do? Like I don't know anything about nuclear except the little bit I learned from my project. And so I was talking to the professor in that research lab, and he said, why don't you just reach out to someone? Oak Ridge National Laboratory, it's in Tennessee, it's a beautiful place. They pay their interns a lot of money, and it's, yeah, that's worth a shout, okay? And being a paid intern is pretty cool. And so I said, you know what? Okay, I'll reach out. And I found one of the staff scientists on the website who does computer science-based nuclear research. And I said, okay, I don't know anything about nuclear, and I emailed him this. Cold email, found his email on the website and said, hi, my name's Kaylee Cunningham. I don't know anything about nuclear. I'm only a freshman, but I know a lot about computer science from what I did in the Engineering Academy at Olympic Heights Community High School, here in this school. And so what I ended up doing was reaching out to him. I said that in my email, and sure enough, he emailed me back and said, let's set up an interview. And I said, wait, really? And we did a virtual, like a Zoom call interview, and I got the internship. And during that internship, I ended up publishing 5 papers. 5! Most undergraduates, most people, especially undergraduate students, don't even publish 1 paper. And I just was in love with what I was doing, and I had a fantastic mentor who really wanted to set me up for success and said, no, let's write a paper. But the key thing to take away here is everything I was doing was the same process as science fair. and the lab challenge from astronaut challenge. I was given a problem. I was given a set of tools, being the computer, different programming languages, and those tools I used to solve these problems that I was given. And then I wrote a paper about them, and I published it. And then I got to present that research, and I ended up placing first in that research competition. And I will say, placing first also came with a monetary prize. I got a little bit of money for it, so that was pretty awesome. So, when you get to the point where you are in college and you are doing your thing, you're studying, whatever, like apply for internships. Even if you think it's totally crazy and you have no qualifications, like I'm a perfect example. I had no qualifications, but I knew how to do computer science from this school. And because of that, I was able to be very successful. And this led me into having an internship every single summer until I graduated. Every summer. And every summer, the money that I made at those internships, I was able to save because they pay you very, very well, and put it away to pay for my housing each year. So I had my tuition paid for, I had my housing paid for. I did not spend a dime at UF. Going out to eat and fun things, I was able to make money working part-time doing more research. My parents didn't have to pay anything. I didn't have to take out any debt or any student loans. Yeah, that's worth an applause. And then I went on to graduate in 2022 from the swamp, and I applied to a few different grad schools, and I actually really wanted to stay at UF. I applied to MIT just because I had to. Like, I knew I probably wasn't going to get in. I didn't get in the first time, why would I a second time? But I applied because, like I said, sometimes you have to be a little delusional. So I filled out the application, and sure enough, I got in. I did. I was accepted as one of the 6% of applicants to study in this program. And I was over the moon. I felt like my dream had finally come true. I didn't quit. I didn't give up. Sounds a little cringy, but it came true. And it happened. And now that I've been at MIT, I was initially admitted as a doctoral student to get my PhD in nuclear engineering. And I was pretty excited to be there, you know, and I ended up also starting, well, I was still at UF in my senior year, but I ended up also starting this TikTok page that was mentioned before. And this TikTok page, right? Ooh, yeah, I hear you guys. So this TikTok page, I really just wanted to start talking about nuclear energy. I was learning so much about it. I was so excited about it. And this was just after the pandemic when TikTok was surging. And I was like, I have to get on here. I had never made a video before, but I went on a mini study abroad to look at geothermal energy in Iceland. And when I mentioned nuclear energy in Iceland, everyone was like, weapons? Bombs? We don't do that. Oh my God, no. And totally shut it down. And I was like, no, I meant like electricity, like clean energy, not bombs. And so I made a TikTok about this, and it ended up getting like 20,000 views. Like the first video I ever posted. And thank you. And so I decided to continue posting videos, just educating people that, for those of you who don't know, nuclear energy is literally just fancy hot rocks that boil water. That's it. Fancy hot rocks. They boil water. That water, when it boils, makes steam, and steam turns a turbine to generate electricity. So I started making these videos, and MIT really liked what I was doing. So they decided to start, first they wrote an article about me, and then another article, and another, and then I ended up on the news, WBZ News and CBS News Boston talking about it. And so all I was really doing was the science communication. This is my page. I have 119,600 followers and over 2.5 million likes. And really all I'm doing is communicating on a platform that you all are using about nuclear energy. I do this on Instagram, I do this on YouTube, and it's been a really fun way to kind of, I guess, bring together the theater stuff that I used to love doing with the nerdy stuff that I love doing now. So, as I mentioned, MIT really liked this. So they decided to take me and send me off to go speak about it at a bunch of different conferences. So, in the top right corner, you can see me in the red blazer on the end, the Atoms for Net Zero conference. That was in Vienna, Austria at the United Nations. I spoke at the United Nations in October, like of this year. Thank you. And beneath that, that was me speaking in the center at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. I went through an American Nuclear Society newscaster and media training, which was in the top center. And that bottom picture, that's me on the right, speaking in the United Kingdom in that castle from the beginning. So the story behind that, I was speaking in Austria at the UN, and somebody from the UN came up to me and said, so this is totally crazy, but would you be willing to fly to the UK, fly into London over the weekend and come talk on Monday? And I said, yeah, of course I will. Are you kidding me? She's like, we'll pay for it. We'll take care of everything. You just have to show up. And I said, say less, say less. So I showed up at this castle, okay? And when I was at the airport getting into the shuttle to this castle, I'm introducing myself to the people who are also at this conference. Little intimidating when you don't know a soul, but I'm getting into this cab with all these people, and the person across from me introduces himself as the Prime Minister of Brazil. What? I'm a grad student. I'm technically still in college. I don't know what to say here. But these are the kind of crazy things that can happen when you take advantage of these resources and put yourself out there. These other photos here, you can see me. The top left is me speaking in Vienna, Austria, the first time I was there with my parents. And then there's a photo of me in front of the White House, okay? And then down in the bottom left corner is a photo at Congress. So I also had the opportunity while I was at UF and at MIT to work with the nuclear engineering student delegation, which I chaired it and basically ran everything this year. But we are a group of students that get together each year, get the American Nuclear Society and the Nuclear Energy Institution to pay for everything for us to go to Washington, D.C., to write a policy statement and go talk to our lawmakers. So talk about the importance of nuclear energy and the things we need from government to move forward with nuclear energy. So these photos in front of the White House, that was in September of this past year, where I was just bumping elbows with senators and congressional representatives, like congressmen and congresswomen. These experiences sound so insane when I'm talking about them here, because I'm I don't know, these things just happen. So it is just so insane and mind-blowing where I have ended up. And now the next question is, where am I going? I'm going back to UF. Go Gators, go Gators. So I very recently decided to leave MIT with a master's instead of a PhD and return to UF for my PhD. And the reason being, I was very, not surprised, but MIT was very much as I expected it to be. The department is very focused on the research that they're doing. They're very brilliant, they're very technical, and they do all the crazy physics and chemistry and material science, but it doesn't feel like home. When I was at the University of Florida, everything that I did in that department made me feel at home. I could walk into a professor's office and sit down and just chit-chat about, oh, did you hear? So-and-so's dating so-and-so, and oh my God, like this person went out this weekend, and like those are the kind of personal, real relationships where your professors don't feel like professors, they feel like people. And I love that environment so much that I reached out just to find out what things would look like if I were to come back. And my old professor ended up letting me know that he's interested in starting this new research program where students can get their PhD without ever setting foot on UF campus, which sounds a little confusing and counterintuitive, like how do you do that? So here's where I want to pause and say, who has seen the Oppenheimer movie? Yeah? Yeah? So some of you may have heard of Los Alamos National Laboratory. Yeah? So if you haven't seen the movie, Los Alamos is a research laboratory that was developed by Robert Oppenheimer, a physicist from UC Berkeley, who worked to develop the first nuclear weapon to end the World War. Okay? So because of all this work that Robert Oppenheimer did to set up this research laboratory, it developed into a defense laboratory, but also an energy laboratory to research new nuclear energy technologies. So when I was speaking to this professor, mentioned that I was interested, I had just seen the movie, like I had heard the history before, it's a super cool place. And he mentioned that this research program would be taking place entirely at Los Alamos National Laboratory. And when I tell you this place is like the creme de la creme, like the best of the best research laboratory in the country, I'm not kidding, it is mind-blowing. And they still have museums and everything is preserved. You can see the guard shack. So in the center is a screenshot from the movie, and that's me on the left in front of the guard shack from the movie in January of this year. Like, it is such a cool place to be, and the research they're doing is so exciting that I said, you know what? I'm ready for a change. Sign me up. I want to go to Los Alamos. I want to do these incredible things to make clean energy to save our planet. And I want to do it with the best and the brightest. So that's what I did. And now I am graduating this semester / into the summer from MIT with my master's and heading to UF for a PhD in the fall, but I'll be taking my classes online and physically heading to Los Alamos National Laboratory to do my research. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, it's almost time for questions, okay? But the key things I want you all to remember here, I've kind of listed up here. Like, I want you to take away number one. It is okay, seriously, anybody, all of you guys, if you're looking at your phones, like now is the only time you actually have to look up and pay attention and listen, okay? Number one, it is okay if you do not get into your dream school. If you do not get accepted into that number one, whether it be UF is really hard to get into. If you don't get into the MIT, the Harvard, or the University of Florida, whatever school it may be, it's okay. It's not the end of the world because you'll still end up doing incredible things and you are still going to be successful. Now the next one, take your extracurriculars seriously. Join a club. I know, anybody going to the SecMe competition this weekend? Yeah? I did SecMe when I was here. I built mousetrap cars and balsa wood bridges. I know. So you have all the resources in the world at your fingertips right here, right now. Like, you have everything you need to be successful at this school and in this school district. If you want to be an astronaut, if you want to go to space, Talk to your teachers. Restart the astronaut challenge. If you want to go to the science fair and come up with a super cool project, talk to your teachers. They know how to get you there. And they have my contact information. I'll help you. You have everything at your fingertips, but it is up to you, and it is your responsibility to take advantage of those resources. And then the last thing, do the stuff that makes you excited. Don't do things just to get into a school. Do the stuff that you are passionate about, that you love, that makes you happy. Because at the end of the day, you will always end up on the right path if you are doing what you love. Thank you. Thank you all so much. So I see a couple hands up. We have about 10 minutes for questions. So I'm gonna start here and then we'll go over here. What's up? Oh, hang on. I think we're gonna pass a mic. Thank you, Miss Foster. I was one of Miss Foster's students. I was in the engineering academy. I know her too.
Hi.
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
I will admit I'm a little bit starstruck as your story was very similar to mine. I mean,
Awesome.
my dream school is also MIT.
Gotcha.
I'm the president of the Coding Club. I'm also part of theater. I'm also not very good at basketball. But I think my main question is I try to do a lot in order to get into MIT or just to make myself feel accomplished.
Yeah.
But I guess how on the days, of course, there's days where you aren't exactly motivated, maybe something really bad happened that day, but you know you have to do something. What's your strategy from recovering from that and doing what you need to do?
So the first thing my parents will always say and have always reminded me, it's temporary. You're not gonna feel stuck forever. So keeping that in your head and keeping that mindset is super, super important. But I would say the other thing is discipline. At the end of the day, you need discipline to help you build habits so that mentally you work that muscle and build up that discipline muscle. So you know, even though I really don't want to do this, I have to. And having that kind of pressure on yourself is what will push you to accomplish these things, even when you're exhausted and you really just don't want to. Now, that being said, it's also important to take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and trying to figure out how to strike that balance is really, really important. Tips for that, how to strike the balance, it takes practice. If you feel like you are at your wit's end, take a break, take a nap, and come back to it.
Very first project, to prevent breast cancer, is coming to fruition. Will you be able to produce a mass produce?
No, I don't have a business right now. I'm not mass producing. Yeah, so we looked into it for a little while, but it became a lot to try and balance doing school and running the business, and I decided it's better to get your degree first and then be able to dive into things. So I mentioned to Ms. Foster, I have some room this summer to look into things a little bit more to see if it would actually be profitable, because that's the one thing you will learn is even if you have the best idea in the world, if it's not profitable, the business might not be successful, even if it really, really can help people out. So looking at whether or not the materials, whether it would be financially feasible is the next step. Oh, wow. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
Hello, my name is Cole.
Hi, Cole.
I'm part of San Diego.
Good luck tomorrow.
I was wondering if the undergraduate research that you did, were those offered by UF, or were those things that you had signed up for yourself, found
Those were kind of a little bit of both. That's a great question. So when I got involved in research at UF, the first research opportunity was something that I got because my mom dragged me back to UF to say, just go to the school one more time and look at it. It's free tuition, go. So I went, and as I mentioned, I put on my little suit and went and set up a meeting with the department head. And that's something that's really unique about the University of Florida is, at least in the nuclear science and material science engineering department, the research professors are all very, very open, very welcoming, very supportive. And those professors were willing to sit down with me just as a prospective student. I brought my resume, I said I want to do research, I did the science fair, and he said, okay, come work for me. I'll pay you $10 an hour if you do some research in my lab. And in my head, I was like, I would do it for free, but okay, you can pay me. And that's how I got my first opportunity. But what you'll find when you get to university or when you're studying in college, if you're interested in research, the opportunities are there, you just have to ask. Most professors are looking for students or would be happy to mentor you or take you on. You just have to be the one to reach out and ask. Hopefully that helps. Awesome.
What did you lose to in the first science fair?
What's that?
What did you lose to?
What did I what? I'm sorry.
What did you lose to?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that one more time. I'm struggling here. What was the question again?
I think in one of the science fairs you mentioned you got second place, maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Who got first?
Lose. I'm sorry. I'm like deaf today. It's a lot. You get nervous up here with these lights. It's hot up here. I'm not going to lie. I don't know at the state science fair. I don't remember. But at the international science fair, I remember the project that won first place was a student from Australia who ended up developing a robot to it was something to do with like a robot to clean windows on skyscrapers, because a lot of people, I guess, get into very dangerous accidents cleaning windows on skyscrapers.
I'm really interested in starting like cancer research.
Awesome.
I have no clue where to start.
Talk to your teachers. That's step one. Step one, talk to your biology teacher. Does Miss Hamilton still teach here? Yeah, okay, so she does. Talk to her and reach out to your teachers and start from there. And I think to kind of piggyback off of that, I would look into science fair. I would look up like winning science fair projects, look at ideas and things you could be doing for next year. Oh, well, that's okay, because when you get to college and you're an undergrad, if you're planning on going to college and you want to get involved, there will be professors at your school who are doing cancer research. So being able to send them an email, even if it's a cold email, or just walking into their office to say, hey, I don't know where to start, but I want to do this, they'll be able to help you from there. That's what I did, and it worked.
You said in the first science fair that you got your hands on materials just to get stuff. What do you use for that?
So the materials I was playing with, I started researching like different radiation shielding materials. And actually our first astronaut challenge, like research proposal was looking at these things. They're called boron nitride nanotubes. And NASA actually is looking at them to shield astronauts from cosmic radiation in space, because boron is an element that likes to absorb and suck up neutrons, which is the most dangerous radiation we're looking at. So I wanted to use those, but they're very, very expensive. And I was a babysitter in high school. I did not make that much money. But I was able to look up some alternatives, and I found some cheaper alternatives online that had never been tested before, but I figured I would test. And I ended up ordering everything like off of Amazon. Like I got uranium glass beads on Amazon. I got a little Geiger counter to detect radiation on Amazon. I ended up using some carbon materials that I got from some sketchy online website. Like But they came in and they worked. They shielded about 70% of radiation from the uranium glass beads. So it's really about just being resourceful and using what's around you. And if you get stuck, don't be afraid to ask for help. Go ahead.
So I made the observation that when you got to CUF, you had red hair, but now you're blonde.
Well, I did get my hair done. I got highlights, and anyone who's gotten highlights knows once you go a little blonde, then you want to go blonder and blonder and blonder. So I got sucked into that loop. Nice question.
So I just have a question when you met the sharks from Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Did Mark Cuban smell good?
I don't remember. I did not sniff him.
Yeah, I probably didn't like him, but I would smell him immediately, so I'll just ask him.
Okay, thank you. Hi.
So you got into UF and MIT schools with very strong, very thriving research programs. What would you say to kids who want to get involved in research but are going to schools that don't have that strong research department?
So the little secret there is that if the research department isn't quote unquote strong, but it still exists, it's still there, that means they're looking to build it up. That means they're looking to become stronger. And that's an opportunity for you to do a lot of very impactful work. So I would, again, reach out to your professors, reach out to who's doing research that interests you, that you think maybe you could help with, and you could be the person to help set up that research lab, which looks 1,000 times better on an application for grad school or an application for a job. Setting up a research lab and getting that leadership experience, then, it looks a lot better and a lot stronger. Does that help? Awesome.
How much more time do you have?
It's 11:02.
So I've had this idea, I've had an idea since like 6th grade, and I have no idea how I would want to start. So
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out how I would want to start it.
Mm-hmm.
Or like how I can start, and try to make it.
I think the best thing, without knowing too much about like what field it's in, I don't know if you want to give a little more, if not, what's that? Environmental engineering, okay. So I think step one is starting with a Google search, okay? Finding out what's already out there. I know a lot of like the scientific journals that you see online look really complicated and scary, but sometimes they have really good information if you take your time to work through them and read them. And so I think finding out what's already out there is a good starting point. And then find some materials. Go into one of the engineering classrooms, talk to your teachers and see what they have for physical hardware that you may or may not need, and just start playing around. Does that help? Do you have more clarification? Yeah? Oh, okay.
Anyone else? Hi, so I'm
Hi.
going to be up in the fall.
Go Gators.
Marine science.
Congratulations.
How did you get into finding internships in detail?
So a lot of the science and, so disclaimer, that internship was actually in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So I moved my butt out to Tennessee. I subleased from another student, which pro tip, if you do an internship far away, there are always Facebook pages where students are trying to sublease their house or apartment, wherever they're living for the summer. So I was able to sublease another student's apartment during the summertime. Yeah, I had to, for professional communication for engineers, ProfComm they call it, I had to take. I'm not sure about marine science, but I'm sure you have a similar equivalent. And they make you write a job application and find one online. So if you just Google like marine science internships and just apply, even if it's like across the country, most of the time if it's really far away, they'll like give you a little bit of money to help you move out there, especially when you're in the STEM fields. Sure. Oh, I will also add, your professors will probably have people doing research for them at different laboratories and things like that that are looking for interns. So talking to your professors is a great thing too.
Hello.
Hi.
So I'm Ian, and I've always loved robotics. And middle school, for ninth grade, I went to the best robotics world. That's what we did at 20,000 community.
Wow, congratulations.
So, and I always I love robotics, and I want to bring it to this school, and I want to do my best to be able to accomplish this community.
Talk to these teachers in the purple shirts.
Yeah, no. I want to get like more involved with it.
Okay.
And I just want to do my best to bring it to the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I mean, I think you absolutely should. These are the programs that you can build up over time that really set you up for success in the future. So I think you absolutely should talk to your teachers, see what, kind of time or resources they may have to spare. And if they can't help you, they'll know someone who can. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, the bell's gonna ring very shortly, so one or two more questions.
Oh, I think we have one more question coming. One more question. Hi.
Totally unrelated though. Can I get a snack?
No, sorry.
Kick him out. Kick him out.
All right, I would like to thank Kaylee for coming and telling her story. I hope it's been very inspirational for all of you.
Thank you guys so much for having me here. And go Lions, right? Woo! And go Gators.
We hope that you will that someday here in the near future.